Welcome to our Savvy series. I'm Catherine Magana here with Rachel Ivanovich, and we are also here to offer you a free complimentary consultation call. You can reach us at 760-692-5700. But we're going to continue the conversation today about second marriages and finance. And we wanted to dig a little deeper on a few topics because we think it's really important. Obviously, there's first marriages and second marriages, but we really wanted to hone in on those second marriages out there. And it's really important that you have those conversations and really think about your financial future together. And so we wanted to talk, kind of start the conversation and look at kind of assessing kind of an individual situations.
Budget and bill paying
specifically. And budget and bill pay, and then also kind of some goal setting.
So when you're combining your households for the first time in your second marriage, you really want to create a financial plan together which incorporates both of your incomes, your assets, and your liabilities. Because before you maybe were married before, clearly if it's a second marriage, you were married before,
yeah.
But then maybe you were single for a while and you had your own bank accounts and so on. And so you're bringing your assets and liabilities into the marriage. So sitting down with your new spouse, and maybe you want to do it before you get married even, and determining what expenses you're going to be splitting, what expenses you're going to be sharing, and who's going to be paying what, and what's important to you, I think is really important.
Yeah. So kind of when you kind of assess your individual financial situations, it's really taking inventory of, what kind of assets do you have? Are they financial assets? Are they houses? And what kind of income do you have currently coming in, and then obviously the expenses. But when you start looking at second marriages, there's also dynamics of beneficiaries and other kids, and so kind of also having those conversations. When you look at individual kind of situations, it's really being open about what kind of income do you have coming in. Is it pension? Is it Social Security? Is there real estate income coming in? And then the assets, once again, we've also seen in second marriages where one of the spouses sold their home because they didn't need two homes, but now they have more financial assets than the other. And so kind of really looking at, what assets do you have to live on and work with, and then how, what are your wishes for, for the family members, afterwards.
I think so. Circling back a little bit to budget and bill paying, some people are allergic to
budgets. I know. It's like the whole word, even financial planning, that's such a big thing.
It really is.
What do you need to live on? And it's probably one of the hardest conversations.
It's a big loaded question, I think. And so I think really being open about everything and clearly stating what's important to each other is going to make you successful in your second marriage. Because maybe you like to travel a lot, but you haven't talked about that yet, and that you want to make sure that you're budgeting for that. Because otherwise, you're going to feel like you're deprived. But if you don't plan ahead for it, you might get yourself in trouble. Yeah.
So when you look at joint budgets, because obviously if you weren't before you got married, you obviously you're living on your own. You had your own budget, or even previous marriages. But when you come together, now it's looking at, what kind of travel? What do we need for living expenses? What do we need for savings? And is there an emergency fund? And if there's a home,
who's paying for what?
Who's paying for what? The maintenance. And so it really goes back to looking at kind of your lifestyle, and if you're used to doing it individually, really coming together, because you should have a handle what the expenses are combined. And really breaking that down. I know we often look at kind of a series of life by design for lifestyle budgeting, and we really break down the expenses into living expenses, lifestyle expenses, and luxury. So your living expenses are your mortgage, your insurance, kind of those major expenses that you kind of have to have. Then the lifestyle expenses could be if you want to see family, you want to travel, or golf, or pets. And then luxury could be maybe, a reunion that you want to go to or throw, or
Botox.
There you go. Some other things, cosmetics.
Surgeries.
Yeah. So you
diamonds.
Really breaking down what your living expenses and lifestyle expenses are. And we're not saying you can't live the life that you want, but being aware and knowing, okay, what's coming in, what's going out.
And one of the things that we say is just what if something is a lifestyle expense for you, maybe it's a luxury expense for somebody else. Yeah. So there is some crossover, and it's important to have the conversation to know what's important to you and communicate that with your new spouse.
And then you think also there's healthcare expenses and those types of things too to factor in. So I think it doesn't hurt to take inventory. what income's coming in, what are the expenses going out, and then also kind of thinking about your future. What happens if one of you survives the other spouse, and what are the plans going forward?
So like you were saying, let's take an inventory. And so I think a financial inventory as you're beginning a second marriage is really key. I think that you need to have that. It's critical that you're having that conversation about what bank accounts do you have?
Yeah. And how are they titled? And
and who are the beneficiaries?
Yeah.
What investments do you have? What insurance policies do you have? And having that conversation with each other in terms of what debts do you have? So we're not just talking about assets, but what are you bringing into the marriage in terms of, do you have student loans? How aggressively do you want to pay those off? Do you have any credit card debt? Do you have any, God forbid, debts to the IRS or the state? Because those are, I've seen clients get in trouble with their new spouses because they didn't disclose that they had back taxes.
Oh, interesting.
And then they file a return together jointly, and then you have a problem all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. So making sure you're having that conversation, and hopefully you don't have that issue, but if you do, making sure that you have that conversation. And I know it can be stressful to talk about it, but I think making sure that you put all your cards out on the table, because money can be a really hot topic.
So then we look at kind of what are some of the joint financial and retirement goals. And through financial planning, we look at goals all the time, and it's not you have a goal and that's it. I mean, you can revisit your goals or they may change, but really having joint goals and visions of what's your future look like, and what is, are you going to travel, or do you want to buy a second home, or spend more time with grandkids, or do you want to pay for education for grandkids? Like, what is it, and maybe there's some nonprofits you want to give to. So really having that kind of vision and goal setting together, maybe having some joint goals. Now, you may have perhaps your own individual ideas, but coming together and really collaborating and making sure you have some joint goals.
And I know some people have a hard time setting long-term goals. Yeah. So if you ask, so what is your 5-year vision? What is your 10-year vision? It's hard to actually nail that down. Some people are really global. Some people are really specific right in the moment. So I think if you think about, okay, in the past, what did I have fun doing? And what do I want to have? What brought me a lot of joy? And then let's do more of those things. That's an easy way to work together to say, okay, if we had fun traveling, let's do more of that. Okay, let's set a goal that we're going to travel every other year, or 5 years from now we're going to save X dollars to go on a trip to Africa, safari or something.
And I guess as you're sharing that, what comes to mind for me is I know we do with our Savvy series and Savvy Woman, we do a lot of workshops, and we have our Retirement by Design workshop coming up. And in there, we actually do a core values exercise together. And I really think core values ties into your goals and your planning, and really making sure that you're aligned together.
Yeah, and when you talk about core values, it's really those root principles that lead and guide you throughout your life, and knowing what's most important to you and sharing it with your spouse is important, because it will, if you set a goal in an area that's not rooted in a core value, you're probably not going to work hard towards that goal, because it's not aligned with your true purpose and your true north.
Yeah. So as you're in your second marriage, if you're going to get married, or if you're already in your second marriage, be proactive, have the conversations. And some of these are difficult conversations, and sometimes they're not. I mean, it doesn't have to be difficult. And just, just being mindful and making sure you're open and everyone's questions are answered, and you can run what-if scenarios in financial plans just to make sure everything's covered. So I think, obviously, from a financial planning and tax planning perspective, having a plan in place is really important, especially if you're in a second marriage.
And remembering that your life is full of different seasons, and just because you have certain goals right now with your spouse, that doesn't mean they're going to be the goals you're going to have in 10 years.
Yes. And we want you to enjoy your second marriage and have fun and live life. So that's part of this too. So that's a wrap for today. Thank you for joining us for our Savvy series. And if you like a complimentary strategy session with us, you can reach us at 760-692-5700. That's 760-692-5700. And remember, Savvy up. Please stay tuned for important regulatory disclosures.
Savvy Women Wealth Management is an SEC registered investment advisor.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry and how we may be able to assist. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. As always, please remember investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Tax considerations presented may not be appropriate for every individual circumstance. A tax professional should be consulted before making any decisions about your tax liability.